admit that my comfort level with Zoom is not great. I had to have my daughter set this up for me because I don't do a lot of Zoom meetings. So this is something very new for me. However, I thought that I would talk this evening a little bit about my journey, what led me to where I am today. A lot of it was really guided by personal issues with myself and my children that sent me down this road to get where I am now. My husband and I have a practice in Walpole. We've been in the same office now for 31 years in that office. And we went down the journey together. So I was very, very fortunate that I met my husband in chiropractic school, and we swore we would never practice together. And of course, when we decided to open an office, it was cheaper to open one than two. So we ended up practicing together, which was really the best thing we ever did. And so I'm very lucky that my partner in life is also my partner in my journey, in my business, and in my life with my kids. So it has worked out to be great. I've also had my kids work in the practice from the time that they were 10 until they left for college. So it's been a real family effort. And it's a very comfortable, warm, inviting environment in the office because a lot of our patients who've been with us forever has literally watched my kids grow up and has gone through the journey with us into how our practice has changed. When we started, we was just really a chiropractic practice, and then what caused us to go down that alternative route to look at the holistic piece was my son. He was preemie. He was 2.5 pounds at birth. It actually was a chiropractic adjustment that saved my son's life. My son was not going to make it. I was told by the doctors at Newton Wellesley that he was going to go on a ventilator and go to Children's Hospital. And before they took him, I thought, last ditch effort, I'm going to adjust him. And I did. And immediately, his oxygen saturation rate went from 88 to 100. He opened his eyes. The nurses started crying. They didn't know what I did. And I explained to them that I'm a chiropractor, and I adjusted him. And by turning the power on in the body so that the brain can talk to the body and healing can get through, and the power of the body, the healing can get where it needs to go. My son came home from the hospital at 37 weeks and 4 pounds, 2 ounces. He was the earliest release Newton Wellesley ever had, and they never saw anybody do that well. As a preemie, they told me he would have all kinds of issues. He had feeding issues as he was born with no tone in his tongue. And so at that time, I had early intervention come, and they would give him red licorice that he would suck on to get strength in the muscle in his tongue. And unbeknownst to me, my son had a food dye allergy, and I was not aware of that. And so he became very irritable, and he became very angry, and we were dealing with a child that was very, very tough to manage. And being young and being a mom, and hearing all the what I call mother, father, teacher, preacher, right? At my parents, like, people in my community telling me I'm a bad parent and he needs discipline and whatever. I decided that really wasn't what he needed, and started going on this journey to find out what was wrong with my son. And I found two things. One is that he was allergic to food dyes, never realizing that food dyes was a neurotoxin. And then the other thing was that he was hypoglycemic. And once I started down doing the work for that, I really helped my son tremendously. And my husband said, wow, there's really something to what you just learned. I think I'm going to go learn it. And then together, we started bringing different modalities into the office. And we started first with nutritional response testing, which opened us up to that whole clinical nutrition piece. And that was huge. And so, my kids were raised, very organic based foods, no food dyes, no high fructose corn syrup. So of course we were the weird family that when their friends came over, like, we didn't have the Oreos, we didn't have, we had more natural based foods, things like that. But as my kids grew and the need and patients started coming in with their children with different needs, I realized that just nutrition wasn't enough. And the adjustment nutrition, it wasn't enough. And so we started looking for other things to bring into the practice. And then something happened. They always say that when things are the worst, God closes a door, he opens a window, or opens, a window, close, whatever. My husband became ill with a very serious heart issue. And at that point, he was laying in Mass General, and I really didn't know. I had two little kids, and we really didn't know what was going to be. And a friend of mine, who I hadn't heard from in a very long time, called me, and he said, "I'm going to save your husband's life." And I said, "You're in Florida. I'm here in Massachusetts. Are you crazy? Like, what do you mean you're going to save my husband's life?" And he said, "I'm going to teach you something over the phone. You're going to get your husband well, and then you're going to go and learn this work." And lo and behold, he was right. And that's when we started down the whole road of learning what we do today, which is functional neurology. And it's called Neuralink, or neurological integrative systems work. And once we added that to our practice and was able to really turn on the intelligence of the body and allow the brain to talk to the body, we saw things just go from here to here. It skyrocketed with the results that we could get. And we realized, wow, the brain is just this incredible computer that can do so many wonderful things. And that's how we really started on the journey together. And so, that was over 15 years ago that my husband was sick, and we're still in the practice together, and he's doing great. And we've taken all the pieces of what we learned, the clinical nutrition, the functional neurology, chiropractic, and we've kind of created our own way of doing things. And so when you come into our office, obviously the first thing we do is take a history, but we start using muscle testing as an analysis. And muscle testing works in the sensory motor nervous system. And so it gives us a direct road right into the nervous system, and it feeds us information that's incredible. And then we follow certain protocols that will help us take us on this journey. So how we do this is we decide, what are the stressors in the body? That's the first place we look. What are the stressors? Where are they? Are the stresses chemical, metals, food, a pathogen, a scar? Could be a scar. So we look at these different things, and that helps us unfold the flow chart, if you will, of how we continue to go from there. So the first thing we do is identify what the stressor to the body is. Then we decide, where is it? And so through muscle testing, we can identify whether it's in the brain or the brainstem. What is it in your joints? Is it in your muscles? Is it in an organ, a tissue, a system? And so we get that defined to find out where those stressors are, and then we start to clear them through the work we do. We also use a lot of homeopathy, and we use whole food nutrition to help the body to go through the process of first cleaning the body. So you find stressors, and the first thing you have to do is clean the body, detox the body, and when you're putting somebody through a detox, you want to make sure that they're not going to be sick going through it, and that's called a Herx reaction. And so we use these homeopathics and we use whole food nutrition to help reduce the symptoms of going through the detox. Once we can clean the body, then the next thing we have to do is repair whatever has been damaged by that pathogen or stressor. And so we go through the whole repair process. And with that, again, it's through the work we do, and we're closely following our patients, generally on a weekly basis, to check in with them, see how they're doing, and see how far they've come. And we're peeling away the layers, like peeling the layers of an onion, if you will, to get to the core. Because when somebody comes in, it's not just one thing. It's not just a virus. It's not just a parasite issue. It's not just a chemical. Very often it's multi-layered, and you have to peel back those layers to really find out what was the actual cause. And the cause could have been 20 years ago, could have been 15 years ago, could have been 30 years ago. And so you start with the most recent and you work your way back, and you get to the core, and eventually you peel back all the layers to bring that body into homeostasis and health. And by doing that, you watch somebody's life just come back to them, and it's just a really incredible process. And so then we rebuild the body with nutrition, whether it's vitamins, minerals, supplements to rebuild the tissues, whatever that patient tests for, that's what we'll use, and get them back to 100% of their genetic potential for their health. And that's different for everybody. And so understanding the patient's need. What are you looking to achieve? How can I help you reach your health goals, whatever they are? And everyone comes in with different health goals. Removing emotional blocks is another big thing that we deal with in our office, because emotional blocks can really prevent you from healing. And so we have to look and see if there's some trauma work that we need to do. It's a very multifaceted process that we go through with the patient, and it becomes a very personal relationship that we have with the patient because we go on the journey with them. Um, and patients know that they can reach us pretty much at any time. I mean, my patients have my cell number. They can text me at any time, ask me questions. And we really go on this journey together, because I find all too often in the medical profession, you go on your journey alone. You go in to see the doctor, and then they give you a pill or a treatment, or they send you for tests, and then you have to just wait, and then they tell you what the next step is, and you're doing it on your own. In our office, we go through this with you together, and I think that's what sets us apart. Also, when you come into the office, my husband and I work together on every case. So you're getting two opinions. My husband's background is more, he's a diplomate in neurology, and we met in chiropractic school. So he is a chiropractor as well, but then he is also a diplomate in sports injuries. He went for a diplomate in neurology. So he brings a whole different level to the practice. We each have our own specialties, so we help each other. And so whatever that patient needs, that's what they get, whether they get it from me or from my husband or from both of us. And so we found that that's what works for us. And I think my patients have found that as well, that they love that. They'll come in sometimes and say, gee, I want to see Dr. Bean, or I want to see Dr. Mike today, and whatever they need. It's not about our egos. It's about how do we best serve our patients. And we just come from a place in the heart, and we've just learned so much through the years, on what patients have brought to us, on what we have learned. And that's really what we do. I think that's been our secret for 31 years, is that we work really well together in the office as well as at home. And we love what we do. And I think when you share a passion, I think that tells everything. You come into the office, you can feel it. My staff, everything is very relaxed, although now with all of the new standards of coming into the office, things have become a little more formal, with the whole cleaning process and wearing masks, and making sure that patients are really safe. And we had to find a way to change some protocols in the office to make sure that that could happen. And we jumped right on it, because we really didn't want to not be there for our patients. And we were fortunate enough to not have to close during the shutdown and stay-at-home order. We were deemed essential, and so we were able to see our patients all through, which I think was a blessing. I didn't want to abandon my patients at all, because this is just who we are. And this is what we do. So it's through a very simple process and very non-invasive. We do send for blood work if we feel that you need it. There's a lab that we use in Bellingham. We do some micronutrient testing, which is very different than what you get in the medical profession. Micronutrient looks at the white blood cell and the red blood cell, not just what's in the plasma, so that we can see how much nutrition is actually getting into the cell, not just what's floating around in the blood. And that gives us a really interesting picture of what's going on with somebody. Because you can go to your doctor and it's oh, everything's fine, but everything's not fine, because in the plasma it's fine, but it's not making its way into the cell. So your body's actually starving, and you don't feel well, and you keep going back to your primary and going, but I don't feel well. And they said, but everything's fine. So we dig a lot deeper and come to this whole process from a whole different viewpoint of what the brain deems necessary at that time of the visit. And that's what guides us. And I'd love to take questions from you guys and get a sense of where you're coming from, because that can put me off, on another tangent. I thought I would just kind of give you an overview. Basically, I didn't start out as a chiropractor, just so that you know. I was in banking. I worked at the United Nations. I had a business degree. That's my background. It was a health issue that led me to chiropractic, and that person gave my life back to me. And so I decided to serve the profession. When I went to school, I only had my prereqs. I was never a bio major like my husband or someone else. So going through school was real challenging. But along the way, I met such amazing people, and I studied with different practitioners to learn. I mean, as a chiropractor, you can do one thing with everybody, or you can do what we do. And there's probably 15 or 20 different techniques that we bring to the office based on what the patient needs. And it just changed my life. It changed my life in every aspect of my life. I met my husband and led us here. We're from New York. We just came here. We opened up. We didn't know anybody and just built a practice and have been there for 30 years. And I think that that says a lot. And the biggest pleasure for me is watching people. I've taken care of patients from birth, and they are now adults and they have their own children, and I'm taking care of 3 and 4 generations of families. So that's been the best thing for me, because I get to watch everybody grow up and then take care of their children. And to me, that's the biggest blessing. So if anybody has any questions, I would love to hear from you and go from there.
Mm, that was unbelievable, Rochelle. Like, phenomenal. And this is what we actually do. We open it up to the floor for questions. So you're perfect timing. I'm going to go right at it, and I'm going to ask a question, because usually when the roles reverse and Kyle's here, I'm always quick to pipe up a hand and ask a question. So I love how you talk about organic nutrition. How important is that? Because I think that that's something that I literally, before this whole meeting started, I was watching a documentary on how important our nutrition is. So maybe you can explain why that's such an important factor in this.
That's a great question. So it's huge. Basically, in the American diet, we get no nutrition. We get fat and calories. We don't get nutrition unless you're really going to seek out really good quality food. And to determine whether something is really good quality food, to get nutrition from it, you have to really look at the chain of where that came from, you know. And so how is it being farmed? So if it's fruits and vegetables, is it an organic farm? Are they using pesticides? Do they allow enough time in between planting crops to allow the earth to rejuvenate itself and allow the minerals to go back into the soil? Because in most cases with commercial farming, they don't allow enough time. And so the soil is depleted of minerals. And so we no longer get minerals from food. And so when we test patients for minerals, most often I have to put patients on a good vitamin mineral supplement, because it's very difficult to get it in our food supply at this time. The other thing is, if you're looking at, meat, you have to look at, what is the animal eating? Are they grass fed? Are they really being given the ability to roam, or are they just in a pen? Because if they're just in a pen, there's a lot of stress to that animal. And when an animal's under stress, they're secreting a lot of cortisol, and it really affects their growth and what's going into the muscle tissue. And think about this, whatever's in that muscle tissue is what we're eating. So you really want to do that. One of the things that I like pretty much at Whole Foods is they have different numbers which tell you like how the animal is raised, and you can choose like what level of food you want to purchase. And so unfortunately, food that's of the highest quality is very, very expensive. And so what I try and tell my patients is pick and choose. Sometimes it's really hard. Not everyone can afford to just buy everything organic and buy such high quality meat or fish. Wild caught, of course, is better than farm raised, because farm raised is fed grain, which that's not what fish typically eat. So you want to make those small determinations. When you can buy organic, buy organic. And if you can't, then especially with some fruit, like where you're not eating the skin, if you can peel it or anything like that, you don't necessarily have to buy organic. You wash it well and you peel the skin and you can eat it. The biggest problem is that in this country, glyphosate which is Roundup, is in like all our food. It's in anything that you eat, from cereal, breakfast cereal, to to baked products, to rice, to anything. It's in everything. And the glyphosate is what is creating that whole issue with leaky gut that you start hearing. Like, that's a term people are starting to use, because it actually breaks down the connections between the cells, which is called zonulin, and it creates a leaky gut. And inflammation is a big problem in this country because of the food that we eat. It's loaded with high fructose corn syrup. It's loaded with food dyes, preservatives, things like that. So the best thing I can say is, the least amount of ingredients you can find in a food, the better off you are to eat that. The more ingredients, stay away from it. And if sugar is listed in the first 5 ingredients, I tell my patients, don't bother with it. And try and shop the perimeter of the supermarket rather than down the aisles, because that's our more natural food than what you're going to find in a box, a bag, or a can. And what you can't get that way, you've got to supplement with. You have to have a good vitamin mineral supplement and fish oil and a probiotic. Those are the things I'll tell people. If there's nothing else you take those things. And the last thing is magnesium. Magnesium is used in over 1,000 enzymatic reactions in the body, and we are so depleted of magnesium. Magnesium is involved with blood pressure because what it does is it works on the smooth muscle in the body, and so it allows the arteries and veins to contract and to expand and contract. And if your vessels lose that ability, that's when plaquing begins. So magnesium is huge for cardiovascular. It's huge for your brain. It's huge for your digestion. You can't absorb vitamin D without magnesium. I can't stress it enough. And so we test people for magnesium and see if they have the pathway to be able to absorb it, because just because you take something doesn't mean you're absorbing it. And that's something else we look at also. Do you have the pathways to absorb all of these vitamins and minerals? And if you don't, then through our work, we can create that pathway. And once we create the pathway, then you can start getting the nutrition in. So your food is important. Water, water, water. That's all the body really requires. And that's what we should be drinking. I would say be a little careful with alkaline water. You don't want to go too alkaline. You don't want to be too acidic. You don't want to be too alkaline. So everything in moderation is good. Carbonation is really not good. What it does is it actually paralyzes the fibers in the nerve cells for 30 minutes after you drink it. So carbonated beverages are really not good for us at all. So that should be limited. That should be a treat. It shouldn't be something we do, because everything in moderation is okay, but not all the time. Same thing with caffeine, alcohol. They stress the adrenal glands, stress the liver. So, you love your coffee, have one really good cup a day. Don't have six. And that's the biggest thing is moderation, because the body can handle so much, but not when it's overloaded. So I would say moderation for nutrition is the best thing, and choosing the best quality food you can in your budget, and make those choices. What's important to you. So I hope that answered that.
Oh, that was absolutely fantastic. That was fantastic. Well, if anybody, Kristen, I see, I can see you chomping at the bit there. Let me find you on this list here, because it's not so easy to see everybody. And I will unmute you. There you are.
Hi, Kristen.
Oh my God, that was amazing. This is like my favorite topic to talk about, is like radical health, like how to be radiantly well in a toxic world, and all of these things that you address, the food, the detoxification, the cleansing, then the replenishing. Oh, I wish I could study under you. Even the chiropractic, it's so fascinating to me. I really wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit on fasting and cleansing. Like we have like a group together that's on a 10-day cleanse right now. We're on day 4. And this cleanse it's not fully liquid. Like you're having some what they call flex foods. So you're having little bits of like a cup of berries. You can have cucumber, steamed broccoli, a little bit of avocado, pretty much it's all raw basically, except for the steamed broccoli. But what is your recommended fast or cleanse for your patients, or is it different for everybody?
It's different for everybody. There are some very good cleanses out there. A cleansing, I think, my husband and I for 3 years did what we called a 5-2, where we were 2 days a week. We basically cleansed and fasted, and then 5 days a week. We first of all, we do protein shakes. There's 2 different companies that I use. One is Isogenics, which we've been using for 15 years. And so that is what introduced us into the whole fasting and cleansing piece. And now I use other things to do that as well. But we used to do 5 days a week of a shake in the morning, a nice, real healthy meal for lunch. So a good protein and nice vegetables, and maybe some fruit. And then we would do maybe a shake for dinner when we were doing the cleansing. And then 2 days a week, we would just be all liquid. And we did that for several years, especially after his heart issues. And that was, phenomenal. But it's really hard to sustain that as my kids were getting older. And I decided that having dinner with my children was a little more important than just downing a shake, and the family time around the table and things like that. But I think that fasting is a good thing, everything in moderation. And I'm going to keep saying that. Everything in moderation is really important. You can't fast all the time, and a 10-day cleanse is great, and then just eat clean food afterwards. And if you do that every couple of months, I think you'll feel great. So I can't hear you. Is Kristen muted?
Sorry. Okay. So Joe unmuted me.
Okay.
One more question.
Sure.
Removing heavy metals from the body. I know
Mhm.
that like cilantro juice will pull out heavy metals, but what else? Okay, I don't know where I got cut off, but I was thinking what I was saying was heavy metal removal and possibly even like, parasite, fungal removal, stuff like that accumulates in a person's body who's toxic. I'm actually studying, I'm taking a cleansing and detoxification specialist course right now. So I just love to pick your brain on it. Oh, now you're muted.
Okay. Am I muted now?
Nope. I'm sorry, Rochelle. This is all my fault. But you hold on. I'm going to tell you right now, listen to real quick, just you can unmute yourself because I've already tried to unmute you. You have to unmute yourself right now and then you'll come back on. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. Go
Okay,
for
is
it.
that better?
That's better.
Okay, this is good that I did it without my daughter. Is huge. You have no idea. I'm not.
So we're all learning. This is what this whole group is about. Personal growth.
Yeah,
Go
this
for it.
is not my thing. So what I use for detox is, because this is what I have found, that when people are very, very sick, you can't just put them on a cleanse. They become very sick. And so I use the homeopathics to help me if I'm going to be doing fungal detox or parasite detox or a viral or a bacterial detox. I use the homeopathics to help guide me through that, and muscle testing, which actually tells me what the patient can handle. So for instance, a lot of these things you buy and it says, well, take, 1-3 times a day, or if it's homeopathic, take 15 drops or 20 drops. I have to muscle test. Some of my patients need 1 drop. Some of my patients can take 3. Some can take 5. Some can take the whole 20. So what I found is you really have to go with your intuition, and I've learned through the years how to do that. And yes, celery juice is very good. Cilantro is very good for heavy metals. I also use bentonite clay, which is really good, and sometimes charcoal. So it really depends what the patient tests for and what they can handle. The other thing that's really important is if you're doing a liver cleanse, you have to give the liver support. And so I use a lot of milk thistle and dandelion root because that really helps as well. So as I said, it really depends. And I use nutritional support depending upon where I'm detoxing. Sometimes the bugs are in the brain. And so, I've got to give support to the brain. So, fish oils, and then some of my clinical nutrition that I use, that whole food supplements that I use, really help. I use protomorphogens, which actually act as a decoy for a lot of the pathogens. And so I'll give that to a patient so that the pathogen will attack that and allow the gland to rest and heal while it's being detoxed. So there's a lot of different things that you can use, but I would love to pick your brain and maybe we can, talk and about how best to do that, because I've learned through the years that one detox does not work for everybody.
That yeah, we'll have to connect because that would be amazing. I'm pretty familiar. I am actually just started taking the bentonite clay, the liquid bentonite clay, while doing the cleanse, because we're taking a bunch of antiparasitics, and I want something that's going to help bind to them and flush them out of the body, so they're not just floating around.
Right.
Just kind of like you want to cleanse it. And the milk thistle, I haven't added milk thistle. I thought about adding it during the cleanse because of the to support the liver, But yeah, this was great. Thank you.
You
Thank you.
should, because while you're talking, I've muscle tested. You would benefit from because I can remote muscle test, and you would
Cool.
benefit from the milk thistle. Take one at night.
Okay.
I think you really should. And the other thing with bentonite clay, which is really important to know, I don't keep patients on it long term because it can deplete vitamins and minerals. So you cannot take it an hour before or an hour after any food or any supplement because
Okay.
it will just take it, right with it.
It'll just absorb
So
it.
it will absorb it. So I usually do the bentonite clay right before bed.
Okay.
And I make sure that you're not taking any supplements or any food at least an hour before you're going to sleep, and then take the bentonite clay at that time.
That's good to know. Thank you
Also,
so
you
much.
want to take it at night because the liver is most active between 1 and 3 a.m., and
Yep.
that's when you're detoxing. So if I get a patient that comes in and they're like, gee, I just can't sleep. I always wake up between 1 and 3. The first place I go is right to the liver and see what the toxin or stressor is. And when you clear the stressor, they start to sleep.
So would you take the milk thistle and the bentonite clay at the same time, or you would take the milk thistle
No,
prior?
take the
Because
milk thistle like dinner time,
yep.
and then
Okay.
take the bentonite clay before bed.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome.
And
Thank you so
that
much.
would be better. And, so it's important to know, especially if you're going to detox. So 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. is gallbladder. So if somebody's coming in with gallbladder issues, they're not getting to sleep. They wake up after they've been sleeping 1 to 3 a.m. It's liver, and 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is large intestine. So that'll give you it gives me a real idea of somebody with sleep issues. Is it that you can't get to sleep? You can't stay asleep? And we look at different things like that. And then of course I look in the brain because, you have to look at the pineal, you have to look at the pons. They're all responsible for different stages of sleep.
Mm.
So you can have stressors in those areas of the brain as well. So anybody else? I'm yours for right now. Ask what you want.
Kristen, if you see anybody, just give me a shout, okay?
Tracy, I think.
Tracy, beautiful. Okay. There you go, Tracy.
Thank you.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Dr. Bean. I wish you were here in California and I could go to you.
Where are you in California?
In San Jose.
Oh, you're in San Jose. Okay. I'm very familiar with San Jose because I have a dear friend who lives out there.
Yeah.
And I could find a practitioner out there if you really wanted to. There are practitioners that do what I do in California.
I would be very grateful for that information. I am a big fan of chiropractic care. Like you, it saved my life. I've been going to my chiropractor for 16, 17 years. And I go religiously every 6 weeks. I mean, I locked up and he got my neck moving in 3 times, but he's limited. He just does chiropractic care. He doesn't do all this other holistic stuff, which I have to find from other sources. And I love that you can do long distance muscle testing. And I was wondering if that would be something you would consider doing more of, like this time of, I know you've got a full practice, but you could serve people like me by an online kind of Zoom where you muscle tested us.
Some FaceTime work, and because I have a bunch of patients that will initially come to me for the initial evaluation, which the initial evaluation in my office usually takes a minimum of an hour. And so it's very one-on-one. But I do have patients that fly up monthly from Florida, Maryland. They don't come from California, but they come from the East Coast and they fly up to see us. And then in between, I'll do FaceTime sessions with them. So it's something that we can talk about.
Yeah, no, it's just, I love, and so I was wondering, do you teach your patients how to muscle test themselves? Like, I don't know if
you know what? It's an art. Your patient asks me, I'll take the time. Most patients don't ask, and it's such an art. It took me many years, to be very honest, because you can muscle test, and let's say you muscle test strong. But then I always ask the question, is this a 100% true statement? Because your intention can get in the way with muscle testing. So you have to know how to decide whether it's your intention or not. So for instance, I'll have a patient, let's say, who comes in for infertility, right? So I work with women to get pregnant. And they'll say to me, I'm not sure I could be pregnant. Can you muscle test me and tell me? And I have to do it when they least expect it. I can't do it right then because it's going to come up that they're pregnant because that's their intention. They want to be. So I just tell them, I'll tell them by the end of the session. And so when they're not involved, consciously thinking about it, I will ask. And I'll tell you, muscle testing is pretty accurate. I'm good for about 90% accuracy with it of removing intention. And usually they ask me, so what am I having, a boy or a girl? And I've been pretty good with that too. So, but I have to do it when they least expect it because of intention. And that's the problem with muscle testing.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to overcome that.
And so thank you so much for all that you're sharing, but can you frame it for me, how are you doing this initial assessment that makes you're not just doing chiropractic assessment, you're doing all this other stuff. Is it Neuralink that you would say you were using?
So that's one of the things. So I've combined like something called total body modification, which I learned over 25 years ago in Florida. And from there, I learned nutritional response testing. And so when I go through asking what the body needs, I'll start off with muscle testing, asking, do I start with NIS, NRT is the nutritional response, the TBM, total body modification, chiropractic. Like I go through a list of the different modalities that I use to ask what the patient needs first, second, third. And that's how I prioritize. Sometimes I'll start with an NIS session and then it brings me to, no, you can't keep going until you adjust this patient. And so then I have to adjust the patient, clear that pathway, and then go back to doing what I was doing. So I really ask what the patient needs each session. So they're all different. Every time you come in, it could be a little different depending upon what your need for that day is.
Right. Right.
You know, but it's really been exciting for me because it's a journey every time the patient comes in. It brings me to another place, which is really great.
You're providing a beautiful service to the world, and thank you for joining us here.
Thank you. I think Betty wanted to ask a question.
Thank you so much. Let me go find Betty. There she is.
She all set?
Hi.
Hi, Betty.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I have a question. I'm a dowser. So would using a pendulum, you be able to muscle test with that?
I've seen it done. I've seen it done. Some of my colleagues do that, actually. It's a great way to ask yes and no questions to find out what the priority is.
I can't hold my arm out and, and test it. So, okay.
You can do it that way. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll be seeing you.
And that's wonderful what you do. I've seen it done, and it just, everybody has to find kind of what works for them. Like some of us muscle test one way, some of us muscle test another. It's kind of like the way that works for you, because that's what's going to work for the patient.
I was taught to hold whatever it is that I'm looking for to my solar plex and, ask, is this good for me? And if I go forward, it's good. If I go back, it's not good. So your body can also be used, as a tool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one way to do it. For me, I muscle test, it's called the O-ring, I'm always asking questions.
Yes, that. And I also learned there's another thing. It's I can't remember what it's called, but if you run your 3 fingers like this, I belong to the American Society of Dowsers. So we learned all these different little tricks. So it's called snap, but you don't actually snap. And you rub your 3 fingers, your thumb and these 2 fingers together and ask it, is my name George? And it'll get like hard to move around, like there's tar. But then if I say, is my name Betty, it should go smoother, and that'll be your yes.
Interesting. And yes, no, for everybody is different. And that's what I explain to patients, because they'll say, oh, when my arm goes down, does that mean one thing? When my arm stays strong? No, it depends on the question and how it's being asked.
Right.
So,
yes, right.
My son used to get very angry at me. My kids are 24 and 27. And my son always said to me, it's not fair. You always know, like I would say to him, did you do your homework? Yeah, I did it. You're lying. And he would say, how do you know? Because I would muscle test.
Yes.
He'd be like, nobody else's mom does that. I'm like, you can never lie to me because I'll know. And, and he never did.
45 and 41, and they can't get anything over me.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really come in handy. A lot of parents are like, can you teach me that? Because it really helps, So, I've used it for all kinds of things and in all different situations. And especially in the supermarket, I'll hold something to my, and I muscle test. Can I have this? Is this highest and best for me?
Is
that
it
kind of thing.
because sometimes I could put it's organic and it may not be.
Exactly.
I
And that's
worked
the
at the
other thing.
grocery store for a while, and yeah,
I know. And I'll tell patients, you know what? If there's something like, even like, let's say supplements they have, I'm like, bring yours in. You don't have to, buy them from me. If yours are good for you, that's fine. And I have patients bring, bags of supplements in, and I go through and I show them with the muscle testing. Just because it muscle tests okay, it may not be a 10 out of 10. So I count it. It's like, yes, this is a 2 out of a 10. This is a 10 out of a 10. This is a 6 out of a 10. So you get to see what really is highest and best and what's not. So you may test for it, but it's not really highest and best for you. So it's all on how you ask.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Thank you so much, Betty.
This
That
is
was a
wonderful.
great
I
question.
love having a discussion like this. This is
Isn't it
great.
fun? It's
Yeah,
fun.
it really is.
Oh, I'm so glad you're having a good time. I'm having a good time too. This is my jam. This is the stuff I love to talk about. So I'm all excited. So anybody else out there, if anybody sees, okay, we got Kimberly. Yep, I will unmute you, Kimberly. Hold on one moment. There you go.
Hi, Dr. Bean.
Hi.
Do you remember me? I am Sarah's mom.
Oh,
And
yes. You know what? It's a little dark, but I can see you. Yes.
yeah, I don't have many lights in this room. And Brunel's grandmother.
Yes.
And we are just so grateful for you. You have been such a blessing in so many ways, a true godsend.
Thank you.
And I too, Tracy, am in California, but love to, when I'm on the East Coast, go with Sarah to see Dr. Bean because she's just a wealth of knowledge and information. But my question for you, you mentioned magnesium, Dr. Bean. How do I know how much to take?
So again, I muscle test that, and there are different types of magnesium. So there's ionic magnesium, there's magnesium malate, magnesium citrate, magnesium glycinate, and we also there's a certain magnesium that we actually use for the brain called OptiNeuromag. But we will muscle test to see what you want or what you need. For patients who have issues with constipation, obviously something that contains magnesium citrate helps them. The ionic magnesium is great because it's absorbed. It's 100% bioavailable. It comes liquid or in capsules, and through Good State, it's a really great product. And it was formulated actually by a functional med MD. And it's wonderful. Usually between 200 and 400 milligrams a day. If you have cardiac issues, you may need 600 or 800 milligrams a day. If you are having issues sleeping, things like that. But I start patients usually on between 200 and 400 milligrams a day, and then I go up from there. And we go usually to bowel tolerance.
I heard you say if you're taking vitamin D, you should absolutely be also.
You need magnesium because magnesium is a cofactor that helps to convert D2 to D3 so you can absorb it.
Okay.
So if you don't have enough magnesium, you're not really absorbing your D3. And you also need K2 to absorb D3. So it's a whole process there. Don't just take D3. Either take D3 with K2 and then also take some magnesium. But if you don't take the K2 with the D3, you're really not going to absorb it.
Yeah, I do have the K2 as well, so that's good.
Because that's the prebiotic. So that's what the body needs in order for you to absorb it through the gut.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Yes, very nice to see you. Anybody else?
All right. Anybody else? That was awesome. Love that question. That was a good one.
So, if I can, impart any information to anybody, I can give you my email. You can email me, and I will get back to you. I will admit I don't check my email a million times a day. I'm better with texting because of my kids, but I will answer you. You can always reach me at Dr. Bean 26. So it's DRBIEN 26 at Comcast.net. And just make sure that if you send me an email that you mention that, we were on the quantum healing, Zoom.
Collective. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm like afraid to answer some emails. Like,
I don't blame you.
Don't know if it's real or not.
Yeah.
So that's one way. And the other way is you can always text me. That'll answer probably quicker. And just tell me who you are. I was on the Zoom with you and
Beautiful.
and then I would get back to you as well. In order to do that, you can text me at 781-820-3454. Because my text I check all day long.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'm sure that someone, Tracy, I think, is putting that in the chat if I can see her from my little view here. And it looks like we have a question from Bella. So if you available for more questions, I think we still got some more time.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Okay, hold on one second. Go ahead, Bella.
Hi, Bella. Okay, I don't hear her.
I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Now I can, I think.
Hello. I was very moved by your account. You're telling us about your preemie son being born and how you knew how did you say, how to redirect his body, or I don't remember the word you used.
So as a chiropractor, I adjusted him. So I'll just give you a little background. I abrupted at 32 weeks and literally just made it there in time. I almost lost my life having him. And so it was an emergency C-section, not what I ever thought that I would have, considering that my daughter, who's older, was a midwife delivery, no drugs, the way I imagined it, right? So this was an emergency, a true emergency. And for 3 days, I wasn't even allowed to get out of bed to see him. And they were bringing Polaroid pictures, literally, and putting them on my IV pole and just of him, and just saying, he's not responding to surfactant. His oxygen sat rate's not really good. Normally your oxygen saturation rate should be 97, 98, 99, 100. His were 88, 89, just not doing well. Hadn't opened his eyes. He hadn't been really fed. He really wasn't doing well. And so when they said to me, we're going to take him to Children's Hospital in Boston, I was in a suburban hospital. I was in Newton Wellesley. I said, you're not going to take my baby. He could die. And I never held him. So I said, you need to bring me to the NICU so I can at least hold him. And I really thought I was saying goodbye to him. And so I figured, well, you know what? I've got nothing to lose here. I'm just going for it. I didn't care if the nurses wanted to stop me. Originally I went into the NICU and they wouldn't even let me hold him. I'm like, you're putting him in my arms because this may be the only time I get to hold him. And so when they did, I adjusted his atlas, which is the top bone here, which is the most important bone in the body, because if there's torque here, this is where the circle of Willis, which is all of the vasculature that goes up to the brain, this is where everything is. And I just, being a chiropractor, I did what came to me, and my back was to the monitor. So I had no idea even like what his oxygen sat rate was. And I just adjusted him, and literally immediately he turned to me and he opened his eyes, and the nurses started to scream and they were like, oh my God, oh my God. And I got really scared. I said, oh my God, like, what did I do? And the nurse's answer to me was, you just saved your son's life. And she ran to go get the neonatologist. And I still didn't know that his oxygen sat rate went from 88 to 100. And the neonatologist came in and he just looked at me and he said, what did you do? And I said, I'm a chiropractor. I just adjusted my baby. And he said to me, you just saved your son's life. You did more for him than we could ever do for him. So Adam, within a week, and he was only 10 inches at birth. I mean, he was very little. At a week, he was off all wires, everything. They were tube feeding him with breast milk that I was pumping. He never went to Children's. He never went on a ventilator. And literally, I went to the hospital every day and just took care of my son because they really couldn't. And at 37 weeks, he came home at 4 pounds, 2 ounces. And I mean, it was chiropractic that really saved my son.
But so when you went to see him, and obviously you really wanted to hold him, and
mm-hmm.
you thought that it might be the only time you would hold him, but so did you consciously say, well, let me try this, or was that like an instinctual gesture
I think it was instinctual, to be honest, because in the moment, I just remember reaching around. When you adjust an infant, you use your fingertip. That's all you use. It's a very, very light adjustment because innate intelligence is so incredible at that point that you just need to guide that. It's not like this, you don't adjust a baby the way you would adjust, an adult at all. It's really just, it's guided intuition of just knowing which way, and you hold it in that direction until you actually feel the bone move away.
Yes.
And that's all I did. I just thought, I guess I didn't even think about it, because when they had that reaction, I was like what? I didn't even realize what had happened. And then when I saw the monitor and I saw how well he did, and then I realized, it was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, and they actually used my son's story. He was they didn't use it the truthful way, but they used it for Newton Wellesley. He was their baby in their ad for the following 3 years. Like they did a photo shoot with him about, their NICU and how well they did, and, that kind of thing. And, I kind of let it be, but it was, the neonatologist basically said, he said, whatever you did more for him than I ever could have done for him. So it just shows you that the intelligence of the body is so incredible that if guided in the right direction, all you have to do is remove the interference for the brain and the body to heal itself, given the right circumstances. And you have to have the genetic potential to do it. So I was just fortunate enough that he did. I mean, and he was born super early. He didn't have iron stores. Like there are a lot of things that I had to learn to supplement. I mean, he was my baby that caused me to go on this journey, So I was very grateful and very blessed that happened, because what could have been something really bad turned out to be something amazing, because it changed my husband and my life forever in the way that we serve our patients. So
Thank you.
I hope that answered your question.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bella. And I've not said hi to you before, so welcome.
Thank
Hi.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Anybody else see anybody with a hand raise? You can also do a virtual hand raise. If you go down to where the participants are, you'll be able to raise your hand in there, and I'll be able to see a little bit better, if that helps. If no one else has a question, I actually have one again. My question is, okay, this is really like kind of off the cuff from something that just happened a couple of days ago. So I'm doing this cleanse with Kristen, and I was taking my before and after pictures, and I noticed in my before pictures, and my body is like leaning. I'm leaning to one side. So then I looked at my back, and my spine does not look straight, and it really concerned me. And I've never noticed. And I remember as a young child, had a little motor scooter, and I fell backwards and landed on my back, and it knocked me out. And I went home, and I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anybody, but I laid in my bed for the rest of the day on an ice pack, and I was in a lot of pain, and I just let it heal. And I don't know if that's affected me. And I guess my question is, if something is wrong and crooked in my back, how could that possibly affect me neurologically? Things like anxiety and things like that.
Okay, that's a great question. First of all, everything in the spine is cumulative. So when you come in the office and we take a history, I want to know, have you ever had an accident like that? Ever had a concussion? Ever had anything that would cause a change in the spine? Because the spine houses the nervous system. That's what it does. And so depending upon what levels in the spine were affected, really will affect where those nerves go to. So let's say it's, T3. So that's like the upper back here. If you affected that goes to the lungs. If you affected T8, it goes to the stomach. So it depends where, I have patients who come in with low back issues, and it's L4, L5. And then without them ever telling me, I'm like, oh, you have bladder issues, you have large intestine issues. Well, how do you know? Because that's where those nerves go to. So everything is cumulative in the spine. And for the most part, when there's some issue, the brain can pretty much 8 out of 10 times correct and heal things, especially, kids' accidents and things like that. But if it goes beyond threshold, that stays with you for life. And then those are the areas you start to degenerate in. And so it changes your function in those areas very insidiously, so you don't notice it.
Mm.
So it can affect anxiety. It depends. So if it's in the
It's in my
upper
mid
cervical
back. It's in
spine,
my mid back. It's right in my, like, directly across. Even as I'm sitting here right now, I
mhm,
can't sit in meditation pose without leaning on something.
right.
Because
So
if I don't,
T7, T8 goes to pancreas, goes to your stomach. So remember, if it goes to your pancreas, it can affect your blood sugar levels. If it affects your blood sugar levels, that can give you anxiety as your blood sugar is dropping.
no kidding.
So you can do this high-low thing all through the day, right?
Mm. Hmm.
If it's like upper back here, it can affect the thalamus. The thalamus is your regulator in your body. So
Mm.
it regulates everything, because everything has to go through the thalamus before it gets to the brain. If it's in your neck and it's like, right in the center of your neck, like
Hmm.
C4, that area there, that's hypothalamus. That also regulates your whole endocrine system. So it really depends. Lower neck here is C7, that's thyroid. So
Hmm.
it really depends what area you injured and what effect that had. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like, the best way I can explain it, you ever play the game telephone? When
Yeah.
you're a kid, you sit in a
Hmm.
circle and somebody starts with, a message. And by
Hmm.
the time it gets to the end, it's something different.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of what happens when you have an accident or you affect your spine in any way. It's like the brain is sending that original message, and then at that spot where you injured, it gets changed forever to wherever it has to go. And so
Whoa.
the message that goes here is not the message that started from the brain.
Hmm.
And in chiropractic, we call that dis-ease, and that's very insidious, and that happens over time. And
Mm.
and you don't get symptoms right away. It could take months or years for you to get symptoms.
Wow. That's
But it
wild.
doesn't mean that you can't. Once you get motion in that area, it doesn't mean, if it didn't fuse and you have motion there, it can be fixed.
Mm. That's amazing. I feel like
So,
it can be, because I dislocated my hip as well, I think as a result of this jumping off a rock, because my body is shifted. Once I saw that picture, it was like it blew my top of my head off, because I was able to correlate a bunch of things that happened to me, and I popped into my hip at one point, and I'll let you do if you got something pop up on your screen.
oh, there we go.
Okay, beautiful. So I landed on my hip, and it popped my hip out, and I actually thought I broke my leg, and then my hip popped into itself on our ride home from New Hampshire. I was about to go to a hospital, and then all of a sudden it just clicked in, and the pain went away. But ever since then, I've had hip pain now, so I'm like correlating it all with this one thing that happened back to when I was a kid. As soon as I saw that picture, so that's so interesting. And I did suffer tremendously from anxiety. That's the whole reason I'm into this entire
Hmm.
thing that I do, is because I had such bad anxiety.
Well, also, what I find with anxiety very often is you get stuck in a fight or flight, and you
Mm.
can't get out, and you're in that cycle. And that's one of the first things I do, even before I start working with somebody, is to check and see if they're in fight or flight. I immediately
Mm.
take them out of it and put them into a healing phase.
Wow.
Because if you're in fight or flight, it's really hard for you to heal,
Mm.
and
Mm.
you'll stay in that cycle, and then that becomes your new norm.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we have to go in and break that norm, and break that cycle by taking you out of fight or flight, and then repairing the tissues so that you're not secreting all that cortisol and things like that,
Mm.
which really contributes to anxiety. But I've seen anxiety also, just come from a lot of different areas. The amygdala in the brain deals with fear, anxiety, and depression. And if you have a stressor in the amygdala, that will cause anxiety as well.
Right.
And so by identifying that, removing that, and healing that part of the brain, a lot of that goes away. Or it could also be magnesium deficiency, vitamin D deficiency.
Mm.
Those contribute to it also. And in the Northeast, we really have to look at our vitamin D,
Oh yeah.
because we're only outside a few months a year.
Mm-hmm. It's truth. Mm. Oh,
So,
looks like we got another question from Sarah. Thank you so much, by the way. That was fantastic. That was fantastic. Okay, hold on one second. Here she
sure.
goes. You good, Sarah?
Hi, Dr. Bean.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. So I was just messaging Kristen and was saying to her that I'm doing all I can not to bawl my eyes out right now, because I'm so grateful that you're here and I love you so much.
Aw, you're such a sweetheart. And you know how much I love taking care of you and Brunel. It's a pleasure.
And like hearing you talk about, your son, and just a little bit of my journey for those of you that don't know. One of my, and I don't even know if I've actually said this to you directly either, but I've been on this journey of like not truly believing that my daughter needs as much medication as they prescribed to her at birth, and she's got a brain malformation. And so for the past, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so, I've been detoxing her from some of her meds, and I've got her, she's probably on at least half of what she used to be on, probably even more than that. And she's actually much more alert. She's more of a person. And even in the hospital before, when we were in Children's Hospital, and you know, they would label her as a vegetable, and it was just some really traumatic experiences being there. Not all of them, of course, but I ended up sharing with somebody that I needed to find a doctor that really supported like my belief systems, and that I started to like really think out of that box. And you know, when I started to stand up for myself in, you know, the medical community and being in these big known hospitals, they didn't like it very much, and they actually ended up reporting me for neglect. So it totally screwed me up, and like, I don't know, the blessing in it all is found you, and I'm just so grateful for you.
No.
That's all I can say, because I'm just gonna bawl my eyes out.
Well, Sarah, you know how
Thank
much
you.
I love you and I adore you, and I have the utmost respect for you and how you care for your daughter, because there are a lot of people out there that wouldn't do what you do, and you do it every day, 24/7. And I've watched you with her, and I'm in awe of you and the mom that you are and how you've advocated for her. Because as I said, there are a lot of parents that wouldn't do what you do. And you really you should be proud of yourself that you've chosen to be that advocate for her in the way that you stand up for her. And you know, it's my pleasure to be, you know, your partner in not only your health journey, but hers as well. And I love you.
Thank you.
Well, that one got me. Good God. That's beautiful. Thank you, Sarah.
And this is why I'm
Give
so blessed, because I have patients that they're not just my patients. I mean, you know, there are patients like Sarah and her daughter Brunel that, you know, I'm blessed to be a part of their health journey and to be a part of their lives. And that's what makes me love what I do and makes our office so different, is that when you come in, it's not you know, I don't have the glass up, and you know, I don't wear a white coat, and I don't, it's really like coming to my home. You're coming really to a place where you're welcome and you're unconditionally loved, and there's no judgment, and I'm just there to help you. That's what I do. And I'm blessed. I really am blessed, and blessed certainly to know someone like Sarah and have the opportunity to be a part of her life and her daughter's life. So thank you, Sarah. And thank you for this. This is really wonderful. I mean, like I said, I'm very not tech savvy, and, you know, haven't done any of these. And this is really quite incredible to me. And I would love to hear what some of you do, because for you to be on a call like this, you have to be incredible yourself to be on your own health journey. And I love to hear the stories, because that's what helps everybody. We all help each other. You know, everybody's on their own journey, but we all help each other in sharing.
Oh, that's what this whole group's all about. Thank you so much for all that, because that's what the whole thing is about, is bringing people together to help. And I mean, we have a Facebook group that I'm sure that someone's welcomed you in. If they haven't, I'm sure that they will. That's, everybody shares their lives on there. We're all a big group of families. I mean, we meet twice a week, so there's a lot of familiar faces that come every week, and it has become quite the tribe. So it's actually quite a beautiful thing. And I'm so aware, where you say you're blessed, we're so blessed to have this information to be given to us tonight from you, because it was I think really valuable. And I think it's the things that I think, in my mind, I think this is going to be, you're at the forefront, I think, of what will be our future health, because after a while, I just see the current system not sustaining. There's too much information out there, and people have immediate access to it. Even though it's filtered, you can still find information. And once you find the right information and you start discovering, wow, there's ways to heal that doesn't involve me jamming a ton of stuff down my throat that
Right.
usually doesn't end up working in the long run. So it ends up just masking until, you know what I mean? So it's just beautiful what you do. You are literally like a living angel, as far
Oh,
as I'm
thank
concerned.
you.
Like
You know, I'm blessed that I've really found some incredible people, and I will say that the neurological integration work that we do actually was developed by an osteopath in New Zealand, and there's only about 70 of us in North America that do this work,
oh,
and hundreds all around the world, and most are MDs. You have to be a doctor to take this work. Because you have to have a very good understanding of neurology and neurophysiology in order to understand how it works. But what's incredible to me is that I'm so blessed that I was introduced to him, and he comes to North America once a year. And my husband and I study with him once a year, and he goes to Germany once a year, and then he also allows people to study with him in New Zealand once a year. And so we were very blessed to be introduced to this work because it showed us really the potential of healing and how it's just incredible that when you bring the brain on board, oh my God, the brain is such an amazing organ. It is our computer, and if
yes.
it's programmed properly, it's incredible what it can do. It really is. So, you know, as I said, I feel very blessed, and I'm blessed by my patient base because they're our family. And like I said, 3 and 4 generations. I say this all the time. I've gone through births with them. I've gone through deaths with them, illnesses with them, weddings. I mean, we've been involved with our patients on every level as they've been involved with us. And that's what makes it so wonderful because we learn from them too.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And we've
Thank you for having
cultivated,
me.
we're blessed. This is honestly an honor. And I think now what we usually do is we've generated some serious energy tonight from the love that you've put out and all the questions and all the comments. It was just beautiful. So now Kristen's going to read our dedication of merit, and that'll be it. So thank you so much for everything. This
My
is amazing,
pleasure.
Rochelle. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, like Joe said, I think that just generated a whole bunch of energy and got a lot of people interested and intrigued and connected to their bodies and your wisdom. So thank you so much for sharing that. What we do now is we dedicate the merit of this meeting to all of those who are awakening at this precious time. May our efforts to better ourselves help shift planetary consciousness from fear into love. May this energy ripple out into the world and awaken those with closed hearts, illuminate closed minds, and inspire all to live within the presence of compassion and generosity.
It's beautiful.
Good night, Mommy. Good night, baby.
She's so cute. She's so cute. And again, I just want to thank you all for having me, and I'd be very happy to join you again and help any of you in any way that I can. I really I think this is really a wonderful group of real positive energy, and I like that. And I love your statement that you read in the beginning and at the end, and that just really resonates with me about bringing the vibration in this world. And that's what my husband and I say, one patient at a time, where our goal is to raise the vibration in this world from either pain or suffering into love and healing, because it's so important.
Amen.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Rochelle,
All right.
and thank
Have a
you,
lovely
family.
night.
Dr. Bean.
Goodbye,
Sarah, I
everybody.
love you. Thank you for inviting me to this.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Much
Love
love,
everybody.
fam.
Good night.
Good night.